Okay, thanks, Alison.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they'd be disappointed too. Yeah, the councils are. I got a lovely letter from Hornsby. You talking about leaving?
Yeah.
I got a lovely letter from Hornsby. It's really nice. Thanking and
The microphone is on. Do you want to on or off?
Thank you. So everyone can hear. I think someone's got to turn their mic off over there. Yes, yeah. Okay, I just see, can you nod if you can hear us? If you're listening, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. We've got a few speakers on today's agenda, so if everyone could keep to the 3 minutes. If you have written a submission, please just refer to your submission and any additional information you'd like to bring to our attention. There's a number of applicants here without objectors, so let us know whether it's a submission you'd like to make or whether you're here just to answer any questions the panel may have. All right, so we'll just move on now to the first item, which is DA 308-2023, 9 Wollongong Road, Dover Heights. It's for demolition and construction of a new Part 2 and Part 3 story dwelling house with integrated garage and new swimming pool at rear. We have no submissions were received on this item. There's no objectors registered, and we have the applicant, which is Tanya Wallace, who I can see there. You're from GSA Planning, and Bruce Stafford and Harry Kensel Stafford. Is there a submission you'd like to make, or you're here for questions?
I just have a really brief submission I'd like to make to the panel, if that's okay.
Yes, when you're ready, go ahead.
So good afternoon. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant and in support of the application, and I have with me Mr. Bruce Stafford and Ms. Harriet Kensel, who are the architects, via separate link, and they'll be available to answer any questions the panel may have. Firstly, I'd like to confirm that we concur with the thorough assessment contained in the Council Officer's report, and of course the recommendation for approval and the accompanying conditions. We do not wish to challenge any of the recommended conditions of consent. And secondly, as you may be aware, the proposal complies with the maximum FSR standard and majority of DCP controls. While the proposal results in a non-compliance with the building height standard, this is largely a function of the existing ground line sloping downward from the front of the site and is isolated to a portion of the dwelling towards the rear. This does not result in any material impacts to the neighbours or the public domain. Similarly, the departure from the wall height control also largely occurs behind the front facade, with the only area of departure in the streetscape a result of the site's crossfall. The areas of additional wall height are designed to ensure neighbours continue to receive compliant levels of amenity, and it will allow for a consistent building height and scale in the streetscape. In this regard, the proposal, notwithstanding the non-compliances, is consistent with the objectives of the controls. The proposal has been thoughtfully designed by Bruce Stafford Architects and will comprise a positive addition to the street with a dwelling that's consistent with the desired future character of the area. And it's for these reasons, members of the panel, that the proposal is appropriate for the site and locality and is worthy of approval. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Wallace. Panel, do we have any questions for Ms. Wallace arising from that? No, thank you. And I don't think we have any further questions for Mr. Stafford and Mr. Kensel Stafford. No, but thank you for attending and be ready to take any questions. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item, which is item 2, which is DA. Oh, I should say, sorry, the panel will retire at the end of the public hearing to determine the applications, with the decisions being put up onto the council website shortly in the next day or two. So the decisions will be made public in due course. Thank you. The next item is item 2, and you've got a conflict, so you're going to leave. Thank you. The item is DA 251-2023, Unit 2 to the Avenue Rose Bay, alterations, additions to Unit 2 of the existing residential flat building. Submissions were received and have been provided to the panel. We have no objectors registered, but we do have, I believe, maybe the applicants, Mark and Joe Gluckman. Are you online? The Gluckmans? Mark and Joe? No? Okay. We'll move on to the next item then. Thank you. Can someone bring Alison Small back in, please? The next item is item 3, DA 296 of 2023, 19 Napier Street, Dover Heights, alterations and additions to the CDC approved dual occupancy development, including extension to the basement floor. There are no registered speakers. The applicant, I believe, is here, Yuri Turgeman, and Craig Schulman Mirad, who's the town planning. I think that might be Mirad Town Planning on behalf of the applicant. Are you there, Craig or Yuri?
Yeah.
Craig, I don't think we can hear you.
Yes, we hear.
Are they? Hello?
Hello.
You might have to speak up.
Can you hear me? Hello.
It's very faint. Can you turn it up at all? Sorry, we can't hear you at all.
Sorry, I've been trying to. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Excellent. Apologies for that. Look, we're here obviously representing the applicant, and sorry. Firstly, good afternoon, Madam Chairperson and panel members. Look, our application is essentially seeking to utilise existing floor area that has been approved under the CDC.
Sorry, you have to keep the microphone right near your mouth, otherwise we can't hear. And speak loudly.
Sorry, is that any better?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, look, I'll cut it short, but we're essentially here just to answer any questions. We've reviewed the assessment report and recommended conditions. We fully support the council's recommendation and have no concerns or any issues with the conditions.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we have any questions, do we? Sandra Robinson?
I have a question that's kind of more one of curiosity than an actual question about the application. I'm just trying to understand you're the planner on the project?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. The approval process that you embarked on, and at what point, how did you end up CDC, then a DA to amend the CDC? I just want to understand the approval strategy that you've pursued.
The CDC for the dual
Hold
occupancy.
your microphone up closer.
Oh,
And talk
Oh.
quite loudly, because we just can't hear you.
I'm really sorry about that. I was testing this before and it seemed to be working, but whatever I try, it just never seems to work. So hopefully you can hear properly. But essentially, the CDC process was I guess a speedier process where the clients could achieve pretty much everything that they needed to get from the property. But when it came to the excavation and the restrictions under CDC for basement levels or lower ground floor levels, it was something that obviously couldn't be done under the CDC, and to utilize that space, which was there based just off the design, it was an option that was looked at to then seek DA approval to utilize that space a bit better.
So
Sorry, can anyone hear me?
Can't hear you.
We can't. Okay.
Okay, now it's working.
I'm really sorry.
Can you speak now?
Yeah, can you hear me? Is that
No, we can't hear you at all.
It's all right.
Don't worry. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Okay. Thank you anyway for attending today. We'll now move on to the next item, which is item 4. Item 4? Yeah. And that is DA 332 2023, Unit 9 and 10 at 49 and 51 Roscoe Street, Bondi Beach, which is external remedial works to the existing residential flat building. We've got no submissions on this item and there's no registered speakers. George Lloyd, you're here on behalf of the applicant. George, did you want to make a submission or are you here for questions only? You're on mute. Could you kindly unmute, please, George? No, I think you'll find down the bottom of the screen there's a little microphone. You just got to press it to get the cross off it. Oh, yes,
It looks like
there you go. You should be able to speak now, are you?
No, it's still blocked.
No. He's moved over though. No, okay, you're still crossed.
He's in the car.
Yeah. No,
You on this one.
no. We don't have any questions for you.
I've unmuted myself. I beg your pardon. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So apologies for taking this meeting in my car. I'm just between inspections at the moment. No, I have no real submission to make. We've engaged David Knight from the council, reached out to us in the last few weeks just to confirm a few points about our proposal, but it's a pretty straightforward proposal, which necessitated a development application for the fact that where the works are taking place are at a non-compliant height level to council's current LEP. But we've read the conditions of consent. They're favourable to us. We don't have a problem complying with those conditions, and we look forward to moving as quickly as possible to doing the remediation works.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions? No. Thank you very much. And there's no problem with taking the meeting in your car. That's fine by us.
Thank you. All the best.
Okay.
Hey, Sandy, I haven't heard from Sandy in a long time. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.
Okay, cheers. We'll now move on. You can mute yourself again, please, George.
I'll exit the meeting.
Or you could just leave.
Thank you.
We'll go now to item number. You're still with us. Are you aware that you're still with us? Yeah, great. Item number 5, DA 373-2023, which is 232-234 Campbell Parade, Bondi Beach. It's external remedial upgrade works to residential flat building. There's submissions were received which have been provided, and there's no speakers either for the objectors or the applicants registered. So we'll leave that item 5 and now move on to item 6, which is DA 261 2023, 12 Ashley Street, Tamarama. We received a number of submissions on this property which have been provided. We also have an objector speaking. For the record, the panel did attend a site visit today from the objector's property at 10A Cross Street. So I'd just like to put that on the record that we, the panel, together with planning staff, attended a site visit. John McFadden or Mark O'Reilly, are you here to speak?
Sorry, Chair, we have had technical difficulties.
Okay, so what we've got at the moment is a technical delay. We're just waiting for the speakers to attend. This is an item that does have an objector speaking, so I would like to just wait until they join the meeting. So, Mr. James, I see you're on there. If you could just bear with us while we wait for the speakers on item 6 to dial in. Oh, thank you. Hello, Mr. O'Reilly, Mark. Is John McFadden joining us? Oh, he's connecting to audio. There's no rush. It's all fine.
Sorry, yes, John is joining. Joe's just sent him the link now.
Oh, okay. That's all right. No rush. We're waiting.
Thanks,
so
Joe.
much for your help, Joe.
Sorry for having two conversations there.
There's no rush. It's all fine.
Yes, John is.
Oh, okay. That's all right. No rush. We're waiting.
Oh, just
Having
one.
our own IT problems here this morning, so it's all good. Don't worry.
Okay. Look, we appreciate you coming out to the house today. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, that's fine. It was very helpful for the panel to be there and see it.
It is an unusual site with the topography and the site itself, and the adjoining site next to it, both adjoining sites, to be quite honest.
Yeah, thank you.
John has the link and he should be joining in a second. Sorry, everyone.
That's okay. He's got the link now, does he?
Yes, he does. Yeah, he confirmed that he was just dialing in with the passcode.
Great. Thank you for letting us know. Is he in? He's not in.
There he is.
Where is he? We can't see. He's apparently in, but we can't see him. Oh, there he is. Oh no, that's Greg James. That's Greg James. Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, you do turn your camera on.
John McFadden, we can't see. Oh, here we go. Right. Okay. If you can unmute, and we're ready to go when you're ready to speak. Your time, you've got 3 minutes. So off you go, John. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're right now. No, now we can't hear.
We can't hear you.
He's speaking on behalf of the objector. We can't hear you, John. Can't hear you.
Get things off.
Yeah.
Speak to them. Is he on behalf of the applicant?
Yes. Yes, good afternoon.
No. Can I just, I'm the chair.
I'm sorry.
And the objector is John McFadden, who is the planner speaking on behalf of the objector. We still can't hear you, John.
Get things off. Because that's what bothers me.
John, we can't hear you.
Is he on this one as well?
Oh, okay. All right. So we've also, sorry, Greg James, Mr. James, you're also an objector on this item. So maybe if you're ready to go, we'll hear from you. Sorry, you weren't on my list, but now we've got you on the list. So you're objecting to 12 Ashley Street, is that correct?
He's on mute.
No, he's not 12. He's on. He's not on this one. Yeah, that's all.
I'm 6 Arnold.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, just go back and wait. Sorry, we've just got confusion over here on the side. We're waiting for John McFadden, who's the planner representing the objector on item 6, which is 12 Ashley Street. Okay, we've got you back, John. No, you're on mute. You're on mute still.
You don't have his mobile to show me.
Can you just? Okay, I think what we might have to do is, John, is Mark, you're there, so maybe you could just address for us. Thank you.
No, thanks, and hopefully John. So John sent hopefully a letter with some drawings earlier this week, just to give you an
We've received the
indication.
submissions and drawings, yes, from him.
Yes.
We're across them. Thank you.
I suppose a couple of points that we had was in relation to tree 14. That straddles both properties, and when we were renovating ourselves last year, we took care to protect that tree and designed our pool and surrounds to do so. This was in part because our neighbours at 12 Ashley also got an arborist report to say that the tree was a healthy tree and that we should try and protect the tree. So we did that. So now with their pool being within 90 centimetres of our tree, or our mutual tree, they've got an arborist report that says that there's a high probability that tree will be compromised. So we're very concerned about that, about the tree. In our view, it's not appropriate given the lengths we went to protect the tree in both our interests in the first instance. John, I don't know whether you're up, but the next point we had was just in relation to the pool height.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Hopefully you can hear me now, and I apologise to the panel. I'm happy for you to continue, Mark.
We can hear.
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to now, Mark, are you happy for John to continue now, or do you want to finish up with something before we go to John? Oh, John, you'll have to take over. Mark's frozen.
Okay, so look, panel, thanks very much, and I appreciate the patience there with the technical issues. As Mark was saying, we've got a tree on the boundary that is affected by the excavation of the proposed pool, which is within 900 millimetres. It's less than a metre. We think the excavation is significant enough to adversely impact on the tree, and we ask that the pool be set back further to respect the structural root zone that's been suggested by the Tree Talk biocultural impact assessment. You'll note also that the pool at number 10A Cross Street is set back around 2.5 metres. So what we've tree to survive. So we ask that the panel consider a greater setback to the tree number 14, the Bangalay. It's a eucalypt tree, which I believe you managed to see on site this morning. You'll also note that the site itself has no works now proposed to the dwelling. However, there is a proposal to remove some bamboo landscape screening, which currently serves to mitigate overlooking from the existing decking. Look, we ask that either the bamboo screening remain or that privacy screens be placed on the decking. It's unclear how those decks were approved without privacy screens. There's significant overlooking there. I think that it's not unreasonable to ask that the existing landscape screening remain in that location. Of concern, however, is that we've got most of the information presented to council not including any context associated with number 10A Cross Street, Bronte. Even though there's some confusion surrounding Tamarama and Bronte, we're right on the boundary here. Our clients have the adjoining site at 10A Cross Street. We simply ask that for the panel to be able to make an informed decision that the actual context of number 10A be shown on those plans. And last but not least, the most critical and the most concerning matter that we have is in relation to the proposed pool. And you would note that the pool is around 19 metres in length, which we say is excessive. We also say that it's inappropriate to have the water level of the pool above the 1.8 metre boundary height fence that's on the boundary there. We ask that the pool be reduced in length and that at no point the water level of the pool be above the height of the boundary fence. We think this is inappropriate. We also think it's inappropriate for residents or anyone attending number 12 Ashley Street to be able to stand either in the landscape strip, even though it's only 900 mil wide. There's also decking there. There's ample opportunity for significant overlooking of our client's property at 10A Cross Street, which we say is unacceptable. We say it's unacceptable. It's avoidable. The pool can be either relocated.
John, can I just get interrupt? Your time's well and truly up. So we've got your submissions, and you're basically just repeating what's already been given to us. We understand those positions. Can I just ask the panel, is there any questions of either Mark or John on this item? No? No.
Just, if I can just say one thing, I'm sorry, panel. Just, I mean, 14A Ashley Street, there, that property was sold late last year, and those residents haven't moved in. I suspect that the overlooking to them from the pool at the back end of Ashley Street.
Well, the current owners could certainly. I don't think
it has changed. It has changed hands, but the new owners haven't moved in.
That's unavoidable in these circumstances. But thank you very much, Mark. We've got thank you. We've got the applicant, Carol Mara, as the architect. Thank you. Did you want to address some of those issues raised by the objectors, or are you just here to answer questions or make a submission?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I would just like to address the panel briefly to respond to some of the concerns that have been raised by the neighbouring owner. I do note that they've had about 10 minutes or so to speak, so I would just like the panel to extend the same courtesy to us if necessary, although I will be as quick as possible. I would like to note that apparently there was a site visit carried out by the panel with the objector sometime recently, and that the applicant was neither notified nor invited to participate in this meeting.
Miss, can I just want to address that straight away. Firstly, you'll have time this morning and that will be afforded to you accordingly. The second thing is that the panel did go out there on site with officers of council. We did not speak to the objectors. There was no meeting as such, and it was there to observe the irregularity block, like it is an unusual block as you're aware of.
Yeah.
And so your clients were not left out of any site visit or any site meeting. We simply went out there for a view and we went with the council officers. So please be assured and assure your client there was no site meeting with the objectors today.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. I'd just like to briefly address some of the issues that have been raised. We have worked together with council officers throughout this process to make significant amendments to this development application, as you will be aware, and have taken on board the feedback through the submissions process as well as from council officers. We have reduced both the volume and the size and the length of the pool. We have reduced the height by about 1.5 meters. And we have reduced the location of pool decks to ensure that there's no overlooking between the property 12 Ashley Street and 10A Cross Street. So all of those issues have been addressed satisfactorily, and that is noted in the report. I do understand there's a concern regarding the tree 14. I would like to note to the panel that this the objector had actually intended to remove this tree as part of their development application, and that tree has been assessed by council tree officer, and recommended for removal and noted to be of no significance or contribution. However, my clients, the applicants, are happy to take on board the recommendations that have been made in the assessment report, and as part of our own arborist report to do the protection measures necessary and the excavation measures necessary to protect that tree during construction. We do have photographic evidence that shows that during the construction of the adjoining pool at 10A Ashley Street, there did not seem to be any tree protection measures in place. Nevertheless, the tree has remained in place and it has survived. In addition, just with the existing landscape, the bamboo that's existing there, I would just like to point the panel to the planning principle of Super Studio versus Waverley Council, where proposed landscaping used as a safeguard against overlooking. The court noted in that instance that privacy screening as part of landscaping should basically be given very minor weight. And the reason for removing that bamboo is that it is not a native species, and we are intending to replace it with 3 native trees, and that will improve both the tree canopy of the site as well as the biodiversity. The site sits in a biodiversity corridor. So that is an important thing to note, that the landscaping, which was put together by landscape architect Craig Burton, is of very high quality and is intended to improve the amenity of the site, and will also improve the amenity for neighboring properties. Just in relation to the overlooking at the eastern end of the pool, as you're aware from your site visit, the site 10A Cross Street has a triangular shape, and it has this sort of funny corner where it meets Ashley Street. That we are noting that that area of the site is not easily accessible, and the area where the pool is slightly above the boundary fence is a very minor section, and there will not be any impact on any neighbors. 14A Ashley Street has a blank wall at that location, and 10A Cross Street has this leftover triangular piece of land that it's not usually accessed by the owners, and we have been very careful to locate the pool as well as the deck where it is. And also, just lastly, on overlooking from existing decks, that is an existing condition. We are proposing no changes to those existing decks. That has been removed from the application based on the feedback received from Mr. Mike O'Reilly through his planner, and that issue has been resolved satisfactorily because that is an existing condition, and as I said, there will be no additional changes to that. I am happy to take on any questions from the panel now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. That was very helpful. I have a question about the screening, but do the panel members have any questions they'd like to ask?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just in respect of the length of the swimming pool being 19 metres, and we heard previously from the submitter that the water level was above the boundary fence. Can you advise of the levels of the water level and the boundary 1.8 metre boundary fence?
Yes, I can. So essentially, as I said, the part of the pool that is above the boundary fence is at the eastern end of the property, so towards the Ashley Street side of the property. So it's a very minor section of the property where this happens.
Was there any consideration given to reducing the length of the pool to, say, 15 metres to ensure that the water level is not above the boundary fence?
So there was consideration given to that because of the shape of the site, the topography and existing constraints. It was deemed that this type of pool, which is long and narrow, was more appropriate than trying to put a pool which was more square or rectangular in shape.
That wasn't my question. My question is to have a 15-metre lap pool as opposed to a 19-metre lap pool.
We did not look at it that specific length. So the pool was originally, the original DA was 25 metres and it was then reduced to 19 metres through discussions with council. And the council officer noted that the proposal at 19 metres was acceptable, and the slight non-compliance where it comes out of, it's slightly above the boundary fence by about 400 or 500 millimetres was an acceptable non-compliance given the location where it is and the fact.
Can you tell me for what length, sorry to interrupt you, but can you tell me for what length the water level is above the boundary fence?
Yes, I can tell you for what length that happens. That is for about 2.5 metres.
Thank you.
Further questions, Jan? Sandra?
No.
Alison? The question I have, Carol, is the removal of the bamboo. The screening of that is quite significant. The removal of it and replacement of native trees, I believe, is the intention. Are you going to plant mature native trees? Because there will, if you're going to plant them small, there's going to be a time lag between of the privacy exposure. I'm just wondering whether you're considering doing any temporary screening in the interim until the trees grow, or that you grow mature, or put in there mature trees so the screening's there from the get-go.
Okay, thank you for your question. I will just look, I'm just looking at the landscape architect's drawing, and I believe those trees are intended to be planted as 50-litre size trees in the first instance. I don't know exactly what that equates in terms of height, but it would be possible to plant them at that size or perhaps slightly bigger, and we wouldn't have an objection if there was a recommendation to plant slightly larger trees from the get-go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
you wouldn't object to a condition going in that to remove that bamboo and replace it, they'd have to be replaced with trees of the same height at the same level of screening. Is that something you wouldn't object to?
We would not object to that condition, but it would just need to be necessary for the panel to appreciate that perhaps trees of that size can't be planted straight away. So what's the time frame within which that would happen?
Yeah. Well, that's something that we'll deliberate on. Thank you.
Yeah, but we would certainly not. I'm sorry. I believe
sorry,
it's
could you just mute yourself, please? Sorry,
So
Carol.
she's lied in relation to her DA.
Mark, can you please? Yes, Carol, go on.
Thank you, panel. I was just saying we would not object to that kind of recommendation.
Great. All right. There's nothing further from the panel. Oh, sorry, Jane.
I'm terribly sorry, Chair. Just one other question, and that is with respect to, I did hear you say that it's been overcome somehow, but the coping, the 900 mil coping on the northern edge of the pool, that you wouldn't have people in that area. Did you just say that it would be prevented from people accessing that, or I didn't quite understand?
Yes, I'm happy to clarify. So what I meant is because at that, for 10A Cross Street, that end of the piece of land at Ashley Street is a very narrow triangle. We are noting that that area is not easily accessible and it's not generally accessed, and it's not really where the private open space is located. They have built a pool outside of their living areas, and there's a pool deck, etc., which is obviously where the private open space is located. So access to that pointy end would be infrequent, and yet not just carried out on a daily basis.
Yep, sorry. Yep, okay then. And I suppose I need to ask you this next question, and that is in respect of the length of the pool. What would be the objection to it being reduced in length? Say that 2.5 metres that you mentioned that over the boundary fence height.
Are you asking whether the applicant would object to that?
Yes, I was asking, I mean, a 19-metre pool is a very long pool, so I'm just trying to understand what would be the restriction of having that reduced so that it is below the fence, then the water level is below the fence line.
It would not be the preference of the applicant for that to happen. It's a long, skinny pool, and it's meant to for lap swimming as such, for exercise. It's not a plunge pool or a children's play pool. So it would not be their preference, but there is no sort of technical issue, if you like me to put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John and Mark and Carol. It was very helpful for the panel, all the submissions and the help you've given us, the assistance today. And we got through it with all those technical difficulties in the end. So thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next item, which is item 7, which is DA 404 2021B, which is 77 Fletcher Street, Tamarama. We have a conflict by Sandra Robinson, who's left the meeting, and we have no objectors speaking, but we have the applicant, Matthew O'Donnell, who's the architect, and Matthew Gribble. Are they there? Are they waiting, or they're in? No, we don't have them. Do we know if they've got the meeting link? Yeah, they all did? Okay. All right, so no one's there to speak to that. Note that they were called and they're not online. We'll now move on to Sandra. Can you come back in? Item number 8, which is DA 276 2023, Shop 5, 87 Oxford Street. Oh, is that? Bondi Junction, and we've got it's a use of ground floor tenancy at 5 as a restaurant, construction of a mezzanine level, and planning agreement for additional floor space. No objections, no submissions received. Applicant Anthony Betros, you're here, I just see. Anthony?
Good afternoon all, and you're happy with the recommendation and conditions, thanks staff.
Is there anything else you don't want to make a submission, and do you want to just answer any questions we may have for you?
Client just requested I attend just in case, thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Panel, do we have any questions? No.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Cheers.
Thank you for making yourself available.
All right, thank you.
Item 9, DA 272 2023, 6 Arnold Street, Queen's Park. Alterations and additions to the existing dwelling house and secondary dwelling. Mr. James, you've been very patient. Thank you very much for sitting through all those technical difficulties. we did receive written submissions, and you're registered as the sole objector today.
Really?
Speaking. So, and we've got the applicant representative here. So, Mr. James, when you're ready, would you like to start?
Can you see me? Yeah, hello.
I can see you and we can hear you. Thank you so much.
I'm retired, by the way, so I can sit here and watch this stuff. Okay. Well, thanks, council and applicants for addressing two or three of my issues. The third issue in my DA submission was the garage has been partially addressed. It's been made shorter and it's been made slightly less high, but there's still a lot of room to make this thing lower so that there's solar access to my backyard and to number 6's backyard for that matter. Behind me is the fence, which I think you can see there. That's the fence between 6 and 8. And the top of that wooden fence there, the grey wooden fence behind me, is the floor of the garage that you're going to build. So the roof will be way higher than that. And the consent for the garage in general, and really there's room to lower that roof line of the garage, not of the dwelling. The secondary dwelling, I'm not complaining about that. The consent for the garage raises some other concerns. If you look behind me, there's a tree on my property, which is right behind me. I'm just waving at it now. And that tree is less than a half a metre from the boundary. It's on your plans, it's DA40, plan DA02 on page 442. And it's less than a half metre from the wall. It's a mulberry tree, which, and aside, it's a mulberry tree. There's also a frangipani in my neighbour's backyard. They're both deciduous. That's great. They lose their leaves in winter, so there's no sun loss. So I doubt whether the shadow diagrams took account of that, because my perception of the sun in my backyard is so much better than those shadow diagrams. I suspect they're not adjusting for the fact that trees lose their leaves. Now, unfortunately, the garage is not going to lose its leaves. And the garage is where that tree is now, and somewhat to the south. And it's, 2 metres roughly above the fence, on top of the fence. So parts of this tree trunk and most of the branches lean west over number 6, chasing the sun. The trunk protection zone required in consent 24 cannot be built around this tree. So this tree will definitely be killed by this garage. Yet council documents make no mention of this tree, even though the applicant has clearly shown the tree on the plans. So council, not me, is consenting to the removal of a tree so that my neighbour can have a second street access for parking. This is flagrant disregard for this tree is deeply galling to us. That is us at number 8, because council recently refused a carport on our address, a single carport, an only carport, with the stated reason in the council's refusal that it would involve removing a very similar tree on my property. Both trees, this mulberry tree behind me, and the tree that would have been, and the pine tree that would have been knocked down by my street access, are non-native, poorly sited, and in a poor state. We have a lot of trees on my property. My wife and I are over 65 and have no parking at our address, no parking in Queen's Park, next to the ovals. It is getting difficult. I state here that my wife and I feel very disturbed and even discriminated against by councils refusing to even allow us one driveway for a stated reason, which is completely ignored. They didn't even mention it when my neighbour wants a second street access. We are simply baffled by this behaviour.
Mr. James, that's your time. Are you finished?
No, having got that off my chest, we don't have a great attachment with this mulberry tree. No, sorry, someone else got 10 minutes here. I saw another person get over 10 minutes, 2 of them. So I'm going to talk for at least 4. Having got that off my chest, we don't have a great attachment to this tree. I've already spoken to Joe about it, and I have no objection to the tree being removed. And I don't have any objection to their second driveway access either. I've spoken to Joe. I'm willing, as long as there's something in the consent that says they pay for and handle the removal of that tree, I'm happy with it, but I'd need something in the consent. Secondly, there's a great big wall behind my house. It looks like this. It's a great big brick wall. It's more than 2 meters above the ground. The WLPP says that my house is below ground level. It will fall down during the construction. It's in very bad condition. Now, that tree that wall, would probably stay up forever in its current state because, there are Roman walls around, but it will definitely be knocked down by this building. But the council seems to be saying that will be a civil matter between me and my neighbour, despite the fact that it will be a result of this consent. So I need something in the consent about what's going to happen there. Yep, and that's me. I spoke for way less than 2 people you had for another one.
Well done, Mr. James. Thank you very much.
And I've
You're
showed you
very
my backyard.
concise. We've heard you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll just see if there's any questions for you from the panel. Any panel? No, we don't. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But you've made your submission very clear, and we understand what your concerns are. So we'll hear now from, if you could just mute yourself. We'll hear now from the planner, Jenny Askin, and maybe Miss Askin can address some of those issues for Mr. James in your submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, panel. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon. Firstly, I'd like to confirm that we welcome the recommendation of the report, noting that we have worked with Council to address the concerns that were raised by the adjoining neighbours, noting that the secondary dwelling has been reduced further from that originally submitted, and that landscaping along the western boundary has been amended to have a reduced height. Secondly, I'd like to confirm that we do not raise any concerns with the conditions as recommended, noting in particular that additional conditions have been imposed to further address privacy. And the application is accompanied by a clause 4.6 variation in relation to the parking standard in the housing SEP. And this has established that there are sufficient environmental planning grounds and the proposal is consistent with the SEP, noting that the additional parking will not result in the loss of any on-street parking and will allow for sufficient landscaping and private open space. The provision of the secondary dwelling also allows for a diversification of housing types. Now, the parking structure that's associated with that is single story to the lane. It provides a landscaped area to the front of the entrance to the secondary dwelling, and it is in keeping with other structures along Burke Lane. The garages, as you would know, are a dominant feature, and the garage as proposed is in keeping with this feature and with this character along the lane. The form at the laneway interface is well below the height for the ancillary structures. The form then steps down the site to minimise the visual impact on the adjoining property and to minimise the solar access impact. With respect to solar access, the report did identify that there was an additional impact on number 8. However, this was assessed as being reasonable given the size of the rear private open space and overall the amenity at the rear in midwinter, and that amenity will be retained. With respect to the trees, as is normal practice, the trees haven't been considered in the preparation of the shadow plans. With respect to privacy, as I mentioned, there are conditions which we are happy to go along with, and landscaping was amended along the western boundary. Besides that, I'm not quite sure. I'm happy to speak to any questions that you have, but I think that has more or less addressed the concerns that the neighbour has said, noting again that the structure as proposed is in keeping with ancillary structures along the laneway.
Thank you. Sandra Robertson has some questions for you, Jenny.
Thanks, Ms. Askin. Could you just confirm whether you had any arborist advice in relation to the tree?
Not that I'm aware of, no. There is a condition on the consent, condition 24, which appears to be quite a standard condition about tree protection, which would have come from Council's landscape officer, but I'm not aware of any arborist advice. Let me just.
No, I can't see any reference to it in the assessment report. Okay, so as far as you're concerned, that tree will be retained and protected by the construction in accordance with the condition.
In accordance with the condition, if council had a concern, they would have raised that concern. I'm a bit confused. The neighbour has mentioned that he doesn't have a problem with that tree being removed, but obviously we can't remove it as part of this development without his consent. It's not within the development site.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Jan Morrell.
Just one question, Chair, and that's in respect of the height of the garage on the boundary there. I may have misinterpreted what was said by Mr. James, but at what level is the garage floor compared to that fence, Miss Askin?
Yes, so if you refer to DAO 3, it does show the outline of the fence as it comes up, and then it steps up. So the red dashed line at 64.75 is the finished floor level of the garage. And that does meet the height of the fence at one point, but the fence would then continue. There's that orange dashed line on that DA on that plan, which outlines the existing secondary dwelling roof, which is further set back. But I'd anticipate, because the fence hasn't been continued on that plan, but I'd anticipate that the fence continues up in a similar manner to that orange dashed line. So there is one point at, actually, the finished floor level is set below the fence height.
Below the fence height.
Yeah. So you can see where the timber screen is, and then internally the finished floor level is just there at the cladding, and then that would be below the fence height.
Right, and the wall height of the structure?
The wall height of the structure at its greatest above existing ground level. I'll just measure it. Is that 4 meters?
4 meters. So approximately 2.2 above what looks to be a 1.8 meter fence.
That's correct. Yes.
Yes. And then there's no, and then the roof. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Further questions, Alison?
No.
Well, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. James, and thank you for your patience as well. And thank you, Ms. Askin, for coming along.
Can I just say one thing?
No, we're fine.
I'm just saying I'm not objecting to the tree being removed.
I'm sorry, Mr. James, could you we've heard from you both and we understand the issues. And if we can now just ask you to mute, we're now going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is 453 Bronte Road, Bronte. Jan Morell has a conflict, so we'll be leaving the meeting. We have it's item 10, DA 273 2023 453 Bronte Road, Bronte. Alterations, additions to dwelling, including new swimming pool at rear. Submissions were received and we have received them. There's no registered speakers for any objectors. We have the planner Lee Cosnetta here and Gabriel Stur on behalf of the applicant. And there you are. Would you like to address or just take questions?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear and see me?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent start. Thank you. I might just make a short submission if I may, and it will be under 3 minutes. We've reviewed the report by staff, agree with their assessment and recommendation for approval. We're therefore asking you to endorse Council's recommendation, but there are a couple of conditions that I wanted to bring to the panel's attention. Firstly, and this is really administrative for Council, condition 13 on page 475 relating to structural documentation. This is a standard condition that requires some details to be inserted which appear to be missing. So paragraph I should be referencing the geotech report and the structural report submitted with the application. And you can find a reference to these reports to be copy pasted from condition 1E and 1F. But to my issues, and secondly and most importantly, we're asking the panel to review the need for condition 17 on page 478 of the papers relating to landscape works in a habitat corridor. The condition arises from referral comments by Council's biodiversity officer on page 467. The officer says that the landscape plan, whilst acknowledging it's fully compliant with the controls, is concerning because of a range of native plants and the position of planting being potentially unrealistic. So that concern manifests in a condition requiring the landscape plan to go back to that officer for another review as a prerequisite to releasing a CC, but it doesn't specify any changes being required. I note that the panel doesn't have the landscape plan in the papers, so I'd ask that you request to see them while you're deliberating on the item. With the greatest respect to Council's biodiversity officer, the concerns are unwarranted and the conditions unnecessary. The landscape plan fully complies with the native planting controls in the DCP. There are 465 native plants of the 845 overall in a variety of forms of small trees, shrubs and ground covers. It's contained within a landscape design by respected landscape architects Will Dangar, Barron Smith. There are 89 native shrubs, 20 native trees, and over 350 native ground covers and grasses. The landscape plans are a fundamental component of the architectural language of the building. The species selection and the positioning is well considered and purposeful, and the plants will thrive under the conditions in the landscape plan. And there's a backup in the landscape plan for inspections 3 months after planting and replacement of anything not surviving. So we ask that the panel delete condition 17. It's not required. It's unnecessary and it's ambiguous given the plan already does what the condition sets out to achieve. And lastly, I want to draw attention to condition 40 on page 487, condition 40. This requires the urban ecology officer to inspect the completed planting prior to releasing an occupation certificate. I think that's an onerous task and an overstep for council to inspect the successful planting of 845 plants. We're committed in delivering the landscape plan, but I'd ask the panel to question the need for the condition and the implications on timing for our OC and moving into our house and OCs generally if an urban ecologist is now involved as a gatekeeper to OCs in habitat corridors. If it's being rolled out as a standard condition, and it doesn't seem to be because it wasn't imposed on an earlier application you looked at today, also in a habitat corridor, then there's nothing unique about our application that warrants its inclusion as a non-standard condition. It's not critical to our development per se, but I'd suggest the panel reject this condition. It's not being consistently applied. It's ambiguous. It's only going to lead to problems at OC. Other those two conditions, 17 and 40, and the admin change to 13, we accept all other conditions and we're available for questions. Gabrielle is the architect, available on another line as well.
Okay, thank you. Looks like Sandra's going to ask your question. Can I just interrupt for 1 minute? I see Matthew Gribble, you're here for item 7, 77 Fletcher Street, Tamarama.
Yeah, I'm Donald actually.
Donald, sorry, my apologies.
That's fine.
I do have a question for you. Do you mind waiting on and we'll go back to that item?
No worries. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Sandra?
Mr. Costello, I'm just curious about your question on condition 17 and your comment that it doesn't require anything. It does actually talk about the 50% of the trees, the shrubs and the grasses to be from the plant species list. So it is actually quite specific in terms of what change the council is expecting to see. Is that your understanding of the condition?
I really appreciate that question because once the landscape plan is provided to the panel, you'll see that our plan meets those requirements. So that condition isn't actually a condition. It's a copy-paste of the DCP controls requiring 50% and requiring a range of plants that are low range, mid-range and high range. Our plan already does that. It's well over 55% across the board. It's well over 55% in each category by number and by species. So there's 400 and something native plants already there, far more than half. So the concerns by the officer weren't that they didn't meet the DCP control, which they do, and the referral comments in the report say that we do. The concerns were that there might not be in the right potential place for planting. And with respect, we're confident in the landscape plan provided by Will Dangar that they are. I'm not sure what more we can provide them in terms of details to convince them on the plan that we've already lodged. So there wouldn't actually be a change to our landscape plan if we relodge it to satisfy this condition. We've had some concerns on other applications about the delays in getting responses from referral bodies, getting CCs issued. We don't want to have to relodge this plan just to get
Okay.
a CC when we've already done it.
So I misunderstood. You're saying that you already satisfy the terms of the condition, and so all you would be doing is relodging a drawing that's already included in the DA set.
Correct. And so it's ambiguous what is required to be changed or what the issue is. And
I can answer this myself, but you probably already can confirm it. Is the landscape plan listed in at condition 1 as part of the approved drawings?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
Condition 1B.
Yep. Thanks.
Alison, any questions? No.
I was going to say the same thing. It's a timing issue.
Yeah. We don't need to hear from Gabrielle unless there's something you'd like to say. Otherwise, we'll just say thank you both. Very helpful. And once again, and then we'll deliberate and put a determination up later in the week.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Well, yeah. We've got a conflict with Sandra Robinson on item 7, which we're going to return to. We now have the applicant architect, Matthew O'Donnell, with us. So item 7, DA 404 2021B, 77 Fletcher Street, Tamarama. Thank you for coming, and we're sorry that we missed you the first time when this was called today. The question I have is, you'd be aware that because this is a court decision, for us to reconsider the conditions, we had to, we've got to go behind the intent of the conditions being made in the first instance. We note that you may or may not have been at that Section 34 conference, but where our understanding is that there was an agreement, obviously, because it's been conditioned, that your client agreed to infill to allow them to have the extra space upstairs. So that's the intent behind that condition. So I'd like to, if you're able to, hear from you as to why now your client wants to walk away from that agreement made in the Section 34 and the subject of the consent of the court.
Yeah, look, you're correct. I wasn't the planner involved in the original proposal that was before the court. So I understand the intent of the conditions kind of third hand from my discussions with the council planners and also my client, Matthew Gribble, and the architect, Jake Dowse. Essentially, the reasoning, my understanding for the client to shy away from the need to infill that basement area now is, and that's not a planning consideration, but it's considerable costs and logistic nightmare of being able to infill that basement within an existing dwelling when it serves no real material benefit other than seeking to reduce the overall GFA of the building, which, in my view, whether that's infilled or not, the overall building envelope as approved by the court is not altered by the proposal. There's no additional scale, bulk or massing added to the dwelling. The end dwelling is ultimately consistent with the overall character and appearance of the streetscape. So it's really avoiding a pretty big logistic nightmare, and I guess to infill a part of the property which is already an open void at the moment. So that's I guess that's the extent I can provide you that justification.
The architect, I appreciate you weren't there, but the architect's the same, isn't it?
It is correct. It is the same architect, yes.
So if the intent or the wish now is due to a cost and logistically difficult, would that not have been known to the architect at the time of the Section 34 conference?
Look, I can't answer for the architect, but I guess you and I can speculate, I guess, potentially, but I can't answer for the architect without trying to be difficult.
Yeah, appreciate that. Is there any other questions? Jan Morrell?
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from the Chair's questions, and the architect, unfortunately, he's not here today, and he would have been one of the constants in terms of the Section 34 and the request that we have now for this modification. I'm just wondering, and the architect would have been able to answer this, but you as the planner, no doubt, would have some views. The intent of the, as the Chair referred to, the intent of the agreement to keep the floors, keep the GFA within the control was quite clear in that judgment. And the other option that open to your client is to reduce the upper level by the equivalent of that GFA and still be able to retain that particular area without infilling it.
Mm-hmm. I would agree that it is a potential option, but I don't think it's a.
Yeah, well, I was just raising it. That is an option that would fall within the intent of the judgment, and that's something that your clients might like to wish to consider. That's all.
Okay.
Because, as you are aware, we have three criteria or criterion under which we must consider modification applications, and that is the reasons for the original decision, as the Chair has pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alison Smith? No. Thank you very much for coming online. Thank you. And we'll go and deliberate and put a decision up later this week.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. They're the 10 items. Thank you, everyone, for getting through all the challenges today. Well done. Yay. And I think everyone's offline. So thank you, everyone else. Cheers.
Yes.
I'll now close the meeting.